President Donald Trump is floating a plan to extend health care subsidies due to expire at the end of the year, but will it become reality? For this and more, we welcome back to our studio Springfield U.S. Congressman Richard Neal. Congressman, thanks for joining us today.
Always pleased to be here, Adam.
Well, this plan, it's in draft form right now, and it would extend the subsidies under the Affordable Care Act for 2 years under the president's draft proposal. And there would be some changes. There would be new income limits, and all recipients would have to pay some kind of a premium. So is this a realistic solution?
So from a political and policy vantage point, I think what's interesting here is that as painful as it was and as difficult as it was for millions of Americans during the government shutdown, now the issue is finally beginning to crystallize. And as it draws focus, you can see what's happened. The president has abandoned his previous positions about no expansion or extension of the tax credits for the Affordable Care Act. But he's now looking at the political reality because he's hearing from his own party, which is badly divided on this very issue. HSAs, as the president is at least floating at the moment, as you noted, it's a draft proposal. It's inadequate. They overwhelmingly tilt toward people in the high income brackets. What we're suggesting is let's extend the credits for at least 2 years and have a policy debate on how they're applied. I think that's a reasonable conclusion. So if you're a Republican from a purple district across the country, you are now offering to the president a siege mentality about the fact that people are starting to see and have now seen exactly what these premium support increases mean. And this is a political disaster for them. And the president's trying to draft proposals. He's trying to placate the base of the Republican Party, who wants the tax credits canceled, against those in the party who say, extend these tax credits at least for 2 years because of the election cycle within which we find ourselves.
And what about the pressure of the calendar with premiums due to skyrocket potentially, for some people at least, by the end of the year?
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, by January 1st, I think that you're going to have a sizable number of people that are going to abandon their health care plans, up to 5 million, as indicated by the General Accounting Office and the Congressional Budget Office, which are independent agencies. They're saying if these premiums go to the place where they're currently being advertised and marketed, what that will mean is that people will simply abandon their health care, which means more visits to the emergency room, which also means, which we know, again, compromised and inadequate health care.
Meanwhile, the Department of Government Efficiency, known as DOGE, also sort of has been abandoned. Very quietly, the president's walked away from this many months before its charter was due to expire. There was a lot of bluster and talk about cutting government waste, and there were people that were laid off. There were budget cuts that were made. And now the president's kind of walked back from this. What do you make of this situation?
I'm not surprised. Anytime you have 19 to 23-year-olds sifting through the files of Social Security recipients, Medicare recipients, and others with very sensitive information at the IRS, this is what you're likely to get. It was a ruse. When Musk said he was going to cut $2 trillion from the federal budget, I looked at that and said, what is he thinking of? And if you remember, Musk and I had a dust-up very early on about this very issue. I indicated that I thought that the harm that they were doing was a joke on the American people if it wasn't so painful. But I also went on to say and question the Social Security administrator when I said, are you aware of anybody who's 300 years old who's receiving a Social Security benefit? I mean, the facade, it's part of the problem in the time in which we live. It's what is put out on social media. It's clickbait. And you say outrageous things and you get attention. So when the president used his State of the Union address to say that there were 300-year-olds, 200-year-olds, 150-year-olds getting Social Security benefits, it was meant to do harm to the Social Security program. It wasn't meant to figure out how to repair it to make sure it remains for the American people for decades to come. I look back at this and I think it's an example of where we find ourselves in the national political discourse, where you have to answer questions like, are there 300-year-olds receiving Social Security benefits? So Musk quietly has walked away from all of this. They've closed the office. There's no more conversation about it. But think of those millions of Americans who tried to contact IRS, tried to contact Social Security, tried to contact Medicare about legitimate questions that they had. How about people that were coming to the Social Security offices and told, well, you have to come back in another 3 weeks because we don't have adequate staffing? And I visited the Social Security office here in Springfield. I can confirm precisely what the claimant said. I think that this was callous, it was reckless, but it had a political strategy to it. And that was to try to collapse the idea that government offers worthwhile support to the American family.
Another topic involving the president, the New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani made an appearance in the Oval Office with the president. Of course, these two had been at odds for quite some time during the election process. It seemed like a pretty cordial meeting by all accounts, and it was interesting that you had a Democrat and a Republican in the same room actually pledging to try to work together in public like this. What was your take on that meeting?
So let me approach this the way Machiavelli might. I look back at that, and I told my staff once it was being advertised to occur about a week ago, when I said to my staff, I said, what this means is that they're both going to get out of it what they want. And they need this confrontation. They need some conflict, because they have to appeal to the base that supported both of them, but there has to be a realistic acknowledgement that New York City, the apex of American achievement in so many ways, arts, music, literature, finance, you name it, but perhaps one of the most important cities in the world for sure. And Trump could not but fail to acknowledge that Mamdani got elected because of the issue of increased prices and inflation. So I think that the base of the Republican Party is likely to be more disappointed by Trump's position that you're going to do a great job, that I love the city, you love the city, let's continue to work together. That was not the position that Trump had taken but a few days and weeks before the campaign. And for Mamdani, I thought that he had asked for the meeting, which Trump carefully pointed out. I mean, there was a strategy here to all of this. And I think that when you look back at it, they both walked out of that meeting pretty satisfied, with the exception of the Republican base across America, that they both got what they needed.
Switching to foreign affairs, there seems to be a little bit of optimism in the Russia-Ukraine talks trying to end that long-running conflict. The U.S. has been involved in it. Do you think things are headed in the right direction with these talks? Well,
this is so contrary to what American presidents since Roosevelt would have said and thought and proceeded in. When you look at what's happening, the president, without any consultation with the Ukrainians until this moment, they drafted the proposal. There was no inclusion of Russia in this, and Putin apparently is prepared to sacrifice 35,000 troops every month in his pursuit of more Ukrainian territory. This is a moment when you can say that bipartisanship since the end of World War II, as it related to Soviet aggression and expansion, and now Russia-Soviet aggression, that it was the American soldier at NATO, European allies, that stood up to Russian aggression, and it worked. So for this president to cede territory for a valiant Ukrainian prime minister and a people in Ukraine who say we are a distinct people, we have our own hegemony, we have our own history, we have our own cultural norms, and for President Trump to sacrifice that in the name of placating Putin is not going to be well met by Democrats or at least half the Republican Party in Congress. We know what this means. It'll be Crimea, it'll be Ukraine. What's the next stop for Putin?
And finally, some folks will be hearing this on Thanksgiving or right before Thanksgiving. Congressman, what are you thankful for?
Well, I'm grateful for the opportunities I've had in America. My name certainly is not Rockefeller. Started out in very meager existence. Gratitude to an aunt and a grandmother who helped to raise us. And I look at the country of promise and opportunity, always understanding that, as Lincoln noted, to perform and to pursue a more perfect union. So I thank the American people. As divided as we are right now by politics, I think that there is also this sense of optimism that permeates America and draws us to the best science, the best arts, the best politics. Hopefully that'll change, and to take us to the next level, which has been our pursuit since our founding. And by the way, congratulations to NEPM and to Ken Burns. I have followed the series. It's like the Civil War. I've watched every moment of every series that Ken Burns has authored. Remember, he started at Old Sturbridge Village as a student at Hampshire College. I've met him, and what a favor he has done to American history.
U.S. Representative Richard Neal represents the 1st Congressional District of Massachusetts. Congressman, thank you and happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, Adam, and your listeners.
And this is 88.5 NEPM.